All right, all right. Good afternoon, everybody. Facebook world, the YouTube world. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to the PlantBased Day Pledge platform. I am Shabaka Amin, founder of the PlantBased Day Pledge. I want to welcome you all. If this is your first time on this platform, welcome. Thanks for taking out your precious time to participate. And make sure you make this as interactive as possible. Leave comments. Now, Dr. B and I are going to get into a great conversation. However, leave comments, leave questions, because more than likely, this is just part one of the Plant-Based Day Pledge series. And this particular live broadcast is really a broadcast for all people, because given the nature of what's going to be shared, the insights, the science and information, the knowledge you're going to gain from this very valuable interview with a very special medical doctor, this is relevant to all people. Now, I will tell you that in America, African Americans have been disproportionately impacted by the coronavirus, and upon being infected, so many African Americans with pre-existing medical conditions have unfortunately died from COVID-19 disease. So the Plant-Based Day Pledge is a public health demonstration encouraging all African Americans to adopt a plant-based eating style as a step towards metabolic health and a stand against food addiction, which I refer to on a mass level, food slavery. So this particular broadcast is for everybody, whether you're an American, whether you are in India, England, Idaho, it doesn't matter, because if you're a human with a body, then it's important for you to become aware of how to fuel your gut to stay alive in the coronavirus era. And that's the topic of discussion: how to fuel your gut to stay alive in the coronavirus era. So what I'm going to do is introduce a very special guest who is a medical doctor. And I hope that I am pronouncing his name correctly. I'm going to say Dr. B during the interview, but he is an award-winning gastroenterologist, and I'm referring to Dr. Will Bulsiewicz. Dr. Will Bulsiewicz is the author of an upcoming book scheduled to be released in a few days called Fiber Fueled, the plant-based gut health program for losing weight, restoring health, and optimizing your microbiome. Now, I know some of you may or may not be familiar with the term microbiome. You're like, microbiome, what is that? Well, Dr. B is going to share knowledge, science, insights on what the microbiome is and how, during this era of the coronavirus transmission, how we can fuel our gut to stay alive. Let me go ahead and bring my guest on, who is waiting. I got to bless my guest, man. I got to take care of you all. You know, your work is so important and is so timely, Dr. B.
Yeah.
We are in an era where the coronavirus has been a disturbing alarm sounding throughout the entire world. However, I don't believe most people are really aware of how much power they have in controlling the outcome. And that's why you are on the show today, because what you know as a medical doctor, neurologist, is life-saving information, because the truth of the matter is, despite what we're watching and hearing on the news, being infected by the coronavirus is not a death sentence. And the knowledge, information, insights, what you recommend today, and I told everyone, this is just part one. We're just getting started. This is the warm-up. What you're going to share today is going to empower the population of people across the globe, whether they're watching live or whether they watch this after the fact. After this show, people are going to know what they can do starting today to fortify God's biology and tell the coronavirus, you ain't got nothing on me.
I love it, man. I love it. I love the energy. And the truth is this, you are 100% correct. You are 100% correct. This is a story of empowerment. We are not hopeless victims of this virus spreading across the globe. We are not victims. We have the ability to change the result. And it really starts with understanding the science. Because when you got the science on your side, then you know, okay, as a human being, where are my strengths? Let me play to my strengths. And you know what? This virus is not perfect. This virus has weaknesses. And we need to identify these weaknesses. We are going to play to our strengths. We are going to expose the weaknesses of the virus. And that's how we come out on top. We make ourselves stronger. We have a shield against this virus. And the beautiful thing is that shield already exists inside of you. Seriously, it already does. It's already there. You don't need to go to the shop, to the store, and try to find yourself a shield. There's not a secret. This is incredibly simple, which is that when you treat your body right, your body wants to pay you back. It wants to pay you back. And that's the way that it's going to do it. It's going to do it by protecting you.
Facts, man. Facts. Look, we starting out. We're in the warm-up phase, and we already on fire. It's already
man, I'm getting loosened up. Oh, I'm feeling it.
And you know what? Great minds think alike. We got the blue on, and man, I'm like, what's the significance of that spiritually? What you just said was powerful, and of course, I've got some questions lined up because we want you to unpack. We want you to share these insights. And the first question, just so for the audience, there are many who will see this and they may not even know, Dr. B, what the microbiome is. So let's start with, I call the basics. What is the microbiome and where is it in the human biology?
All right, guys. This is something that I literally talk about in my book, Fiber Fueled, Chapter 1. The engine that drives human health isn't even human, okay? Because we are not alone. We are not alone. From the top of our head to the tip of our toes and everywhere in between, we are covered with these invisible microbes, things like bacteria and yeast. Now, you can't see them, but they're there, and there are lots of them. If you take all the stars in the sky, all the stars in the Milky Way, multiply that by 100. That's how many of these invisible microbes you have as a part of your body. And they're concentrated inside of your gut. The number one place is inside of your large intestine, which we also call the colon. That's where they live. And here's the thing that's interesting. These microbes have always been with us. There's never been a moment in human history where we didn't have our little invisible friends. And because of that, we have grown to trust them. We trust them. They help us with our digestion, but it's so much more than that. Right now, our immune system is so important. It is so important. And 70% of our immune system lives in our gut and talks to these microbes. They are in constant communication. You know who trains your immune system? The microbes do. The microbes train your immune system. They help you to identify what is good, what is bad, what you need to be protected from, and what you're okay with. Your brain, your mood, guys, serotonin is the happy hormone. It affects your mood, it affects your memory, the way that you think, your energy. In medicine, if we want to treat a person who's depressed, we give them a serotonin medicine to boost their serotonin levels. Guess what? 90% of serotonin is produced in your gut. 90%. It's only 10% here. 90% in your gut. Okay. And hormones, like if we got anyone on this call right now who suffers with hormonal issues, whether it's a hormonal imbalance, endometriosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, even breast cancer, even ovarian cancer, all of these things have been tied back to our gut microbes because they affect the balance of our hormones in our body, our metabolism. You know, this is a really important thing, Shabaka. This is an important thing to talk about the metabolism because we're here to discuss how do we protect ourselves from COVID-19. And the vast majority of people who are afflicted with severe COVID-19, the vast majority have metabolic issues, whether it's high blood pressure or diabetes or heart disease, whether it's kidney disease. And guess what? All of these things have been tied back to the health of our microbiome. When we take it all together, we zoom out for a minute. You know, you think about human health. We have discovered, and this is to me, this is shocking as a doctor, only 20% of disease comes from your genetics. Only 20%. 80% is the diet and the way that you live. And what that means, you guys, is that if after our call today, if you start to make changes, you will already have the ball in motion. You will be starting the process of healing. You will be moving your body further away from the high blood pressure, from the diabetes, from the kidney disease, and moving yourself in the right direction towards health. 80% is in your power. You are empowered to change it.
Wow, that's a powerful opening. And, you know, for 22 years, I've been a nutrition performance coach and personal trainer.
I thought you were like 19 years old, man. How is that? How you been doing that? That's incredible.
I appreciate that. You know what, Dr. B, I'll be celebrating my 49th birthday on June 25th.
What?
And see, before I even knew about telomere biology, I did research. God whispered and said, you know, this plant-based eating style is the fountain of youth. So I never believed in aging. So I'm grateful. Thank you for the compliment. Your statement was so powerful. I mean, there's so many talking points, so many things we're going to unpack. And thank you for sharing with the audience what the microbiome is, where it's located. And one of the most profound things you said that I want to really unpack is, in essence, nowadays having a fiber-fueled gut is the difference maker between staying alive or dying. Would that be safe to say, based off what you shared so far?
There has never been a moment during our lifetime, and I'm highly confident that this is true for everyone on this call right now. There has never been a moment in our lifetime where it is more important than right now to double, triple, quadruple down on taking care of our gut. I am taking my own medicine right now. The things that I wrote in my book, Fiber Fueled, I'm following my own prescription right now because it is so important in terms of your health long term, but even in the short term, to build that shield against this virus. You want to build that shield. And the way that you build that shield is by taking care of your immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, I want you to understand, if there's one thing you take away from this call today, there is a direct line between your food, your gut, and your immune system. They are directly connected. You can't separate them. So if the food that you eat is not healing you, then it's hurting you.
Facts.
And we need to eat the food that's going to heal us. And when you heal the gut, you heal the immune system too.
Mm-hmm.
And you're building that shield. You're building that shield to protect yourself.
So powerful. Now, you use the word shield. I'm very keen on word choice and the meaning of words, because words shape perception and they bring clarity or they bring confusion. Shield would be used interchangeably with immunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your immunity.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. What it means to me is that you are optimizing your immune system.
Facts.
When I talk about building your shield, what I'm saying is this: I want your immune system to be precise, to be targeted, to be optimized. What that means is that it is ready for the challenge and it's ready to step up and give you exactly what you need. Because, the thing, Shabaka, that people don't really understand, and I want your listeners to hear this, is that it's not just about more immune system. It's not just about that. It's about a precise, optimized immune system, because when you hear these stories about people who end up in the intensive care unit and they have the breathing tube, the reason that happens with this virus, believe it or not, is because the immune system becomes overactivated. So it's not the virus itself that puts people in the ICU with the breathing tube. It is that the virus activates the immune system excessively. And then the immune system stops being your friend and can create these problems. We call it acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like having a massive pneumonia in both lungs. It's like having a massive pneumonia in both lungs. And you just can't fill the lungs up with enough air because there's water there. And ARDS is caused by an overactive immune system. So Shabaka, what we want, like I said, precise, optimized, targeted. That's the immune system that we want. And let me give you a quick example. I hope you don't mind me being a nerd for a moment.
Oh, please, by all means. This is an educational platform, and I want you to say what you have to say. But one of the terms that connects to what you said, that's been described by Deepak Chopra and others, that there is a chronic inflammatory storm taking place once the virus, the coronavirus, enters the human body.
Right. Yeah, I think so to play off of that first, before I tell you about my nerdy study, I think you're right. There is a chronic inflammatory storm that's in play. And if you think about it, when you have these chronic medical issues, diabetes, high blood pressure, chronic kidney disease, chronic heart disease, each one of these things indicate that there is already inflammation active within the body. You're already inflamed. That ball is already rolling. And the problem is, when that ball is already rolling, it doesn't take much to give it a nudge, and that nudge sends that thing out of control. And that's one of the major issues that we're seeing. This is why you worry about these people that have these chronic metabolic disorders, because they're already in a state of inflammation. And there's this term that you'll hear people talk about. So you're saying a chronic storm. that storm, what I'm saying to you is that storm, when you have those medical issues, that storm's already brewing. And it doesn't take much to set it off. And what can happen acutely, in addition to the chronic storm, is you can get that super thunderstorm. And what we call it in medicine is we call it a cytokine storm. Cytokine storm. And a cytokine storm is the immune system gone berserk. It's the immune system gone completely haywire, out of control, just basically nuclear. It's dropping all its bombs all at once. So you don't want that. You want targeted, precise, optimized. So let me tell you about this, the kind of segues into my study that I want to tell you about real quick. They did this study, Shabaka, where they took a look. And, let me say this, that I'm not like advocating for us to be doing all kinds of animal type studies, okay? But I'm just going to share the results of this one study where they looked at mice and they gave them either a high fiber diet or a low fiber diet. And these mice had influenza. And they wanted to see, did they, what happens when you give them high versus low fiber and they got this respiratory virus? And the scientists were shocked. They were shocked that the high fiber diet allowed the mice to live longer with less symptoms and with better lung function. They measured the lung function and it was objectively better. And scientists are like, what the heck? That's the opposite of what we expected. We thought that the fiber, because it's anti-inflammatory, would suppress the immune system and make it so that you couldn't fight the infection. So they looked into it further, and here's what they found. Remember, I told you there is a direct line between your food, your gut, and your immune system, okay? Keep that in mind with what I'm about to tell you. With the high fiber diet, it affected the gut. The gut microbes consumed the fiber. Fiber doesn't just go in the mouth and come out the other end. Fiber is food for the microbes. So these microbes ate this fiber, and when they ate it, they released what's called short-chain fatty acids. The short-chain fatty acids, they actually went to the lung and they activated the immune system. But the way that they activated the immune system, so again, food, gut, immunity. That's the connection. The short-chain fatty acids that came from the fiber and were activated by the gut microbes went to the lungs, and here's what they did. It's like exactly what you want your immune system to do. They got the CD8 cells on the battlefield, okay? Those are the cells that fight the virus. It got the right soldiers on the battlefield to put up the fight. But what about the rest of the soldiers? What about the guys that you don't want to be going nuclear? The short-chain fatty acids cooled off the rest of the immune system. What I'm telling you is that when I say precise, targeted, optimized, that's exactly what you get with a plant-based diet, feeding your gut and affecting your immune system. Precise, optimized, targeted.
Man, that's powerful, man. I got a couple things I want us to unpack, man. What it's important. This broadcast taking place on YouTube right now, taking place on Facebook right now, I believe it's going to go over 1,000 views, because when people really listen and process what's being shared, those who are wise, those who are seeking wisdom and understanding, they're going to get it. They're going to process it. They're going to buy your book, which I would highly recommend. And it's scheduled to be released on May 13th or 14th?
May 12th, next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday,
we're going live. Yep.
7-day countdown. I want to bring you back for the Plant-Based Day Pledge-a-thon, and let's do it PBS style, because I want people to buy your book in real time. And I also want people to take the Plant-Based Day Pledge. It's so important. The Plant-Based Day Pledge is a public health demonstration encouraging African Americans to adopt a plant-based eating style for an entire day, but really it's a ongoing public health campaign. We start with a day, and the day is symbolic of a period of time in which there's an opportunity for African Americans to create a new public health story over the next decade. And we can do so once African Americans take 100% responsibility for their health destiny. And one of the most powerful ways I've discovered personally through research, through revelation, is in adopting a phytoceutical and fiber-rich whole foods plant-based eating style, especially for those African Americans and those Americans who are already dealing with what I've been talking about for years, metabolic syndrome conditions, starting with what I call the precursor condition, central obesity. Excess abdominal belly fat is that first condition, according to all the research, that opens the way for the other risk factor conditions, from abnormal cholesterol or hypertension, or you have elevated blood glucose because of insulin resistance, which can lead to prediabetes and then type 2 diabetes, whether we're talking about a non-alcohol fatty liver, whether we're talking about PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. And so all this cluster of risk factors, which have been called for over a decade, identified by medical science as metabolic syndrome conditions, now more famously referred to as pre-existing medical conditions or comorbidities. People need to know that a phytoceutical and fiber-rich whole foods plant-based diet is the modern day God-made vaccine.
Gosh, man, you got me fired up. Every single one of those conditions that you just named, if you read chapter 1 of my book, you will see those exact words. Every single one of the conditions that you just named has been connected back to our gut microbiome. You cannot separate it from the metabolism. It's a part of the deal. And the bottom line is that when you take care of your gut, it'll take care of you. And Shabaka, you summed it up so eloquently. This is the diet that we were meant to eat as humans. This is the way that our biology was designed. This is the way, and this is the diet that will add years to your life, and it will make them beautiful, great years that are healthy. Because it's one thing to live to 90, and it's another thing to live to 90 and enjoy every single year along the way. And you don't want to be 65 and have 25 years not feeling so great. You don't want that. You want to be healthy the entire way. This is the way to do it. And, you know, I just have to say this. First of all, I'm still in shock that you're 49 years old, my man.
Thank you.
I'm still in shock. And you legitimately, if I legitimately had to guess, I would have guessed 27. And
that's my real age. That's my biological age.
My man, you know, it's cool because for me, and people will see this when they read the book. When I was 30 years old, I was miserable. I was 50 pounds overweight. I mean, you got to understand, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I was a pretty good athlete. And I was up 50 pounds compared to that when I was 30 years old. I had high blood pressure. I had anxiety. I had low energy. And I had low self-esteem. All the stuff that we're talking about trying to correct in our call today. And I'm a doctor. How come I couldn't figure it out? I couldn't figure it out. And the problem was that Will, the guy, not Will, the doctor, not Dr. B, Will, the guy, is prone to the exact same issues as everyone else. I made the same mistakes. But my medical education did not teach me the way out. I had to find it. And I honestly feel like the heavens opened up and an angel came into my life, and that's my wife, because we started dating and she ate differently than me. And she ate a plant-based diet. And we would go out and I would be like, okay, is it the ribeye or the pork chop? And she would go, waiter, would it be okay if the chef puts a bunch of plants on a plate? Make it look nice. And that's what I'm going to eat. But she ate without restriction. She was enjoying her food. She looked amazing. And that by itself opened things up in my head, because I was looking for a way out of these issues that I was having, and I hadn't found it. And when I saw this person eating without restriction, loving their food, enjoying a delicious meal, and maintaining a healthy weight with no medical issues, I had to check it out. So I checked it out. I did a smoothie instead of going to Hardee's. Instead of getting the $5 grab bag where you get the double cheeseburger and the chili cheese dog. Instead of that, I went home. I made a smoothie. I felt so good that night. I smashed a workout an hour later. I felt so good. And it brought me back. And what we're talking about today, Shabaka, is the exact same thing as that, which is I want you guys to be taking that first step. You know what you're talking about, the Plant-Based Day Challenge. The Plant-Based Day Challenge.
It's the Plant-Based Day Pledge.
The Plant-Based Day Pledge
Yes.
is about taking that first step. And I'm willing to bet that when you take the Plant-Based Day Pledge, you're going to feel so good, so good, that just like me, you're going to say, gosh, man, there's something to that. I want to come back and try that again because I felt so good. And the beautiful thing is, I'm just telling you right now, my book, Fiber Fueled, 600 scientific references, basically showing us, you guys, it's not plant-based gut health. This is not some breed of gut health. This is gut health. It just is. This is the way your body works. We were born to eat plants for longevity. And so the reason why I brought this up, Shabak, I got sidetracked in my own mind. But the reason I brought this up is that I was 30 and I looked like I was 50. And now I'm 40 and people are asking me whether or not I'm old enough to be a doctor. Man, I'm a dad and I drive a minivan. And people are asking me whether I'm old enough to be a doctor. I reversed aging. I'm younger at 40 than I was at 30.
That's right.
And it feels great.
That's right. And I see it in your skin, man. Your skin looks good, Dr. B. I can tell, they say those antioxidants and those phytonutrients, they show up as a glow, as a radiance in the skin. So you look good, man. And, it shows, you're practicing what you preach. You look ageless. And so, it's important for people to understand. See, I've been training people for 22 years, along with nutrition performance coaching. For those who don't know, I'm one of the pioneer I coined the term plant-based fitness and put it on my website and define what plant-based fitness was as early as 2010. Put it on my website. I said, why am I getting all these visits and I'm not getting a whole lot of calls? So people are borrowing language. And so about a year later or two, I started seeing plant-based fitness pop up everywhere. But most importantly, I'm one of the pioneers who had a brick and mortar facility for 12 years, putting people on plant-based meal plans when it was not a trend, before it was a trend. In fact, it was risky. And it was so risky that I was very careful when I got new customers, Dr. B. I always said, we're going to focus on increasing your plant-based food consumption, because I understood that if you come with an anti-meat message, you're going to create resistance. So I was wise enough to understand that I've got to introduce and seduce my customers who are regular Americans. They were white Americans, Black Americans, Latino. I have had people from India who became citizens. women and men, young, old, medical doctors. I've trained a lot of medical doctors, dentists, thinkers, news reporters, you name it, some pro athletes. My point is, I understood long ago, 22 years ago, that in order to get Americans to eat plant-based, I would have to talk to them about increasing plant-based food consumption. And as I challenged them 22 years ago and throughout my whole career, I want you to take one day where you just eat plant-based foods. It was what I call my seduction method. And the feedback, the biofeedback they got and the feedback they gave was that, wow, I felt lighter. I was regular in terms of my bowel movement.
Not to be underrated.
That's right. And I didn't realize I could feel this way just on plant-based meals. So it's been a remarkable journey for me to introduce plant-based eating to the personal training industry way before even Forks Over Knives came about. And Forks Over Knives set the tone in America for, I'd say, Forks Over Knives and Eat to Live by Dr. Furman.
That's my guy.
Set the tone, a wave where people just started really getting on board with this whole plant-based eating movement. So it's been 32 years for me. I've been on a plant-based and vegan eating style for 32 years. I started in the fall of 1988, just to share a brief backstory so people can know my history and how I got started and how I help people. But one of the questions I want to ask you, because it sounds like in your book, the statement you just said, it sounds like that major scientific discovery was what you just shared. Is that correct? And if not, share with the audience what that major scientific discovery that you reveal in your book. But I think you mentioned it minutes ago.
Well, to me, on my journey, I healed my gut. I lost my 50 pounds. I got back to my high school weight. Blood pressure issue, gone. No medication. Anxiety issue, gone. Feeling good. Energy levels, all the way back. Self-esteem, man, I'm here. I'm feeling really good. And so that to me was the first wave of evidence. But then I went to the research and I said, what's with this? How come I haven't heard anything about this? I trained at Georgetown for med school, Northwestern. I was the chief resident at Northwestern. I was at the University of North Carolina. Most people think it's the #1 GI program in the country. Why didn't I hear about this? And what I found were thousands of studies to support a plant-based diet. But if you want me to tell you what is the one study, if I can only share one, that is the gut health game changer, let me give it to you right now. There's a project. It's called the American Gut Project. Okay, guys, this is not just American. This is more than 150 countries from around the world. These are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have shared their information and their gut microbiome. It is by far the most powerful database that we have to connect our diet and lifestyle with the health of our microbiome. And they did an analysis and asked the question, what is the single greatest predictor of a healthy gut microbiome? What is the #1 thing? Here's what it is: the diversity of plants in your diet. The diversity of plants in your diet. This is the most powerful thing that you can do. And it's interesting because we look for validation of this idea, and it's not hard to find. Shabaka, I mean, I feel like we got to talk about something, which is that I'm a gastroenterologist. I am the guy who unfortunately diagnoses colon cancer. The community that is affected by colon cancer the most in the United States is the African American community.
Mm.
It is more common. It is also more aggressive. It is to the point that we have had to make a separate rule exclusively for African Americans. Everyone starts colon cancer screening at age 50, but if you're African American, you should start 5 years earlier at 45. All right, because of that risk. And they did this study, Shabaka, where they took a look at African Americans and they compared it. They compared them to people who are native Africans consuming a traditional diet in Africa. And what they found, this is insane. I mean, let me just frame this before I say it. To say that there's twice as much colon cancer would be a lot. That would be me saying there's 200% more colon cancer, right? To say twice as much would be a lot. You guys, they found 60 times more colon cancer in African Americans than they did in these native tribal people. And what they did is they did an interesting experiment. They had people switch their diet. So the tribal people ate a high-fat, low-fiber diet, a traditional American diet. And the African Americans switched over and did a high-fiber, low-fat diet. And in just 4 weeks, radical changes on both sides. For the tribal people, it was at the expense of their health. And for the African Americans, dramatic improvements in the biomarkers connected to their health, in the biomarkers connected to inflammation. So to me, the path is clear. Your gut thrives on a plant-based diet. Your gut thrives with a diverse mix of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, seeds and nuts, legumes. That is what the microbes in your gut want. And like I said right from the beginning, there is a direct line between your food, your gut, and your immune system. You want a healthy immune system? Feed your gut with a diversity of plants, period.
And I really, really appreciate, Dr. B, you commenting on the fact that as it relates to colon cancer, African Americans are leading in that category. My question is, within looking at the data, looking at the evidence, from a gender standpoint, are we seeing more African American men or Black men with incidences of colon cancer higher than even Black women? What are you seeing? What does the data show? What have you noticed in your office in terms of diagnoses?
We know across the United States that when you look at the gender difference, there clearly is a higher incidence of colon cancer in men, regardless of race.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's fueling this is, and let me just break this down for you guys and unpack it a little bit. The World Health Organization has labeled processed meats, cold cuts, hot dogs, sausages. The World Health Organization has labeled this as a carcinogen. And the reason why is the connection to colon cancer. And what we see, Shabaka, is, and there are studies, gut microbiome studies, to show us this. When you eat meat, what happens is that you activate your liver to produce bile. It's the fat in the meat that your liver will produce bile to help you to absorb the fat. But the problem is that bile, which is liver juice, bile changes the microbiome. Bile changes the microbiome. And what happens is only certain species can live, can exist with all that bile. We call them bilophilic. All right. That basically means they love bile, they love it. And what we see is that these bacteria, instead of preventing colon cancer, instead of reducing inflammation in your body, they are the opposite. The bacteria that you get when you eat a high meat diet, particularly with red meat and processed meats, the bacteria that you get produce what are called secondary bile salts. And secondary bile salts have been directly connected to colon cancer. A high-fat diet through the microbiome causes colon cancer. And we have seen that there is a signature in the microbiome for colon cancer, that we are at a point where we believe that the microbiome is not just there along for the ride. The microbiome is the cause of colon cancer. So to me, there's this powerful evidence that stands in contrast. It's one thing to eat fiber. It's one thing to eat plants. It's another thing to eat the American diet, which is 10% plants, 30% meat, dairy, and eggs.
Facts.
And 60% processed food. And so what you have is you have this scale that you're trying to balance out, and 90% of the weight is on the bad side, dragging you down, and only 10% is helping you. And that 10% is not enough to keep you afloat. It's not enough. And what you do is when you move that needle, when you start dropping the animal products, when you get rid of the processed food and you replace it with real food, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, seeds, nuts, and legumes, you start changing that scale, and it starts to shift in the other direction. And next thing you know, you got your engine humming exactly the way that God wanted it to be. You are fueling your body with exactly what it needs to be optimized, and that is fiber from plants.
Man, I got some questions, but I'm at a loss for words.
You want a fiber-fueled body. That's what you want.
Fiber-fueled, folks. And as you can read the bottom of the screen, the new book, Fiber Fueled, will be released on May 12th. Go ahead. You can go to the Apple platform, the books platforms, and other platforms, and you can pre-order right now. You can pre-order the book right now. Tell them where they can pre-order so that they know where they can go to pre-order.
It's a national book launch. You guys can get this from any of the classic websites. So you can get it on Amazon. You can get it in hardcover. You can get it as a Kindle. You can get it from Barnes & Noble. But, one thing, Shabaka, that I've been thinking a lot about is we're in the middle of this COVID-19 crisis. And when the COVID-19 crisis is over, I want to be able to go to my local bookstore on a rainy day and have a cup of coffee and flip through some books. And what that means is that when we do buy books, I kind of think we should be supporting our local bookstore whenever we can. Mm-hmm. So I would really appreciate, I think it's worth the extra effort to make a phone call to your local bookstore and call them up and say, hey, I want a copy of Fiber Fueled. They could take your credit card on the spot, give you a receipt. That book is yours. That book is yours. But what you're doing is you're helping to keep that bookstore alive too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you what, we're in remarkable times. A lot of the talks I've done, I practice meditation and mindfulness, Dr. B, and I have for as long as my daughter has been alive. She's 24. That's how long I've been practicing meditation and mindfulness. And when I meditate, I get downloads. I receive ideas. Sometimes I get stuff that's 15, 20 years ahead of the trend that comes out. But in more recent times, I was instructed to use the word God's biology, because the reality of it is whether we look at it from a religious framework, a spiritual framework, or just a scientific framework, even a scientific orientation, as far as someone, not that, scientists obviously some are religious, some are spiritualists, some of them are atheists. But all of us can admit we didn't make our biology. And no one, I don't believe, would argue that they made their own biology. So, the reality of it is, I've been talking about how important it is to give God's biology better. Treat God's biology well. God's biology deserves better has been my message for several months. God's biology deserves better, and God's biology deserves plant-based foods. These are hashtags I've created, and I constantly speak about the fact that God's biology deserves better. And this is what I believe. And this belief is based off of the evidence, because what you just basically said, and I'm familiar with the data from the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, talking about there's fundamentally 3 areas in which Americans derive calories from: highly processed foods, animal products, and plant-based foods. So we look at those 3 areas. If you have a highly processed food-based meal, how does that impact your microbiome? How does that impact your metabolism? The ramifications. We look at an animal product-based meal. How does that impact your microbiome? How does that impact your metabolism? And last but not least, you mentioned outright that we know, based off of this study, the American Gut Project, and they have the microbiome database, that gut health is because of a diverse array of plant-based foods. We look at the data and we know, and we've known for decades, that out of those 3 food group categories, and I'd argue only one is really legitimately a food group, out of those 3 food group categories: highly processed foods, animal products, plant-based foods, whole plant-based foods, that only one is responsible for gut health. Only one.
Right.
And since you mentioned 70% of our immune system is in the gut, and African Americans who have more recently died as a result of COVID-19 disease, and the evidence being clear, those Americans in general, and of course African Americans and the Latino community, has been hit hard. Those Americans who have died from COVID-19 disease had at least one or more pre-existing medical conditions, and those pre-existing medical conditions, metabolic syndrome conditions, but also including the pulmonary conditions like asthma and other lung diseases,
which, by the way, are also connected to the gut,
are due to a neglect, a plant-based food deficiency. And calorie-rich processed and animal product food overconsumption and overindulgence. In essence, what you just broke down was, when we look at those 3 food group categories that the USDA provides data indicating that Americans are where Americans are getting their calories, we can eliminate, we can arrest and reverse comorbidities or pre-existing medical conditions literally overnight. Overnight meaning that if there was a widespread commitment, a pledge, a plant-based day pledge taken by all Americans over the next 365 or 66 days, we could virtually eliminate pre-existing medical conditions, and in doing so, tell the coronavirus to go to hell back where you came from.
Oh my gosh, man, you got me so fired up. There's so much that I want to say in response to what you just said. Let me start here. Science is not standing in the way of faith. Science is confirmation and strengthening our faith.
Facts.
My faith is stronger because the more that I learn, the more that I recognize that God made us beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
God made us beautiful, and it all makes sense. There's so much about our body that I don't understand. There's so much that science is not able to explain. And science is no replacement for what God did for us. Science is our window. It is our window. That's what it is. It is our window into the truth. God knows the truth, and we are trying to understand that better.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is this: the science is showing us. Let me ask you a question, just out of curiosity. So you eat a very healthy diet. You've been eating this way for years. You have felt the benefit in the way that you feel, in the way that you look, in the way that your body functions.
Every moment.
How many plants, if you had to guess, during a week, do you think that you eat? I know it's a high number. How many plants during the week do you think you eat? Meaning different species in a week. 30, 40, 50?
Right now in my gut, I have some organic pumpkin seeds that are being processed. I will have some organic blueberries. When I have my salad, I buy what they refer to as like a spring mix. Sometimes they call it, the product is a melange. It's a mixture of several different types of green leafy vegetables. I will have what they call pico de gallo, which is diced up tomatoes, onions. What's the other? Some other stuff in there.
Yeah, sometimes some pepper. Yeah,
peppers in there.
Right.
I'm going to either have an entire can of organic black beans, or an entire can of a trio of pinto beans, black beans, and I think it's kidney beans that I get from Whole Foods. I'm going to have an apple when we go off. So to answer your question, and I may have some organic oats with some raisins. So to answer your question, today I will hit at least 4 to 5 of the plant-based food groups.
Mm-hmm.
Just normal. This is a normal way I train my biochemistry, metabolism, and physiology nutritionally day after day. That's just normal.
So, it's interesting. So what I'm saying to you guys, and this to me is one of the key takeaways from our conversation today. The diversity of plants is the single greatest predictor of a healthy gut microbiome, and that will affect your immune system. People don't realize God put 300,000 edible plants on our planet. There are 300,000 edible plants. And most Americans aren't even getting above 20. And this is where there's an opportunity for us to fix this by doing more. We were designed to enjoy all these different plants from around the world. And, I mentioned the tribal Africans that were studied. If you look at a different tribe, they're called the Hadza, and they're in Tanzania. And the Hadza, when they study them, they eat 100 grams of fiber per day. Most Americans are getting 15. 97% of us are not getting even the minimal daily amount. And when they look at the Hadza, they ask, how many different types of plants do they eat? How many species? They eat 600 varieties of plants. 600. Most of us aren't even getting 20. All right. This is where I would encourage everyone who's on this call. It's time to step up. It's time to take the Plant-Based Day Pledge. And when you take it, you are going to think about this idea, diversity of plants. And that is going to bring you gut health. And we know from this call that when you have gut health, you have immune health too. You are optimizing your immune system.
Beautiful. I know we have covered so much. We got to do a part 2 because I have more questions. And I know
Let's do it.
You're a doctor, medical doctor. You've got other things on your itinerary and agenda today, and so do I. Dr. B, this first show has been so powerful, so insightful, so informative. I would say inspiring. We're sharing information. I'm asking questions. The audience is responding. I know there's comments. Maybe we can take a comment or a question before we wrap it up. And actually, what we'll do, we'll preserve that for the next show. Dr. B, I thank you for your time. I appreciate you. We will schedule a part 2 because I've got some other questions. We've covered so much. I'm going to reiterate that there's so much detail that could not be covered. So I'm going to ask everyone to go ahead and pre-order that book. Some of us, I'm the type, I like the tangible book, which you have in your hand, Fiber Fueled. I already know it's a bestseller because I've not seen a book in publication that deals with the evidence on the relationship between a fiber-rich plant-based diet, microbiome, and gut health. I've not seen, my nutritional library is vast. You name it, who's out there, who's published really good work, I own it. I have it. I'm big into research. I'm big into processing. I consider myself a journalist. I take people, medical doctors, and scientists publish. I extract the most important information and I express it as lessons, practical things that we can implement right away today. So I thank you for your time. Please, let's schedule a part 2.
Let's do it.
And last comment, if you were an African-American man, would you adopt a plant-based diet in order to not just survive, but to remain alive?
If I were an African-American man, adopting a plant-based diet would be one of the best decisions of my life. It would be one of the best decisions of my life. And it would be more than just reversing the high blood pressure or the diabetes. This is about transforming your health. This is because you deserve it. I honestly believe that. This is because you deserve it. You deserve to feel the way that you were born to feel.
Facts. It's a birthright.
So, and I think that this is one of the smartest and best decisions that any person, listen to this, whether you are an African-American guy, a white guy, anything, it does not matter.
That's right.
It's one of the best choices you can make because you will feel the way you were born to feel.
Facts. Thank you so much, Dr. B. We will talk very soon to schedule part 2. You let me know what your schedule's like, and we're going to bring part 2 because I have some questions that will pull on more of the points in your book. We want to inspire, we want to inform, and we want people, everybody watching this right now, buy the book, Fiber Fueled, released next Tuesday. I'm calling it one of my favorites. I've perused through different sections of the book. I'm the type person, once I read the table of contents, I already know whether or not it's a great book based off of just reading the table of contents. and right there, I'm going to purchase the book. So I'm asking everybody, this is the book to buy. Get what we're dealing with, the necessity of fortifying God's biology, the necessity of fortifying God's immune system, and now knowing that 70% of the immune system starts in the gut. How the microbiome, specifically, what is it? The microbiomes, the microbes feed the immune system and metabolism.
They do.
Everybody, as an act of public health success to ensure metabolic health, which I call the basis of biological wealth, everybody should own fiber fuel.
I love it, my man.
Amen, and I endorse that message.
Shabaka, thank you, my friends. Thank you for having me on. Grateful for everyone who came to hang with us today. I look forward to connecting with you guys more in the future. You can find me on Instagram as the Gut Health MD, on Facebook as the Gut Health MD. You can go to my website, by the way, theplantfedgut.com. I got a newsletter. I got a COVID-19 guide. And I also am going to be posting this week my research guide, which includes all 600 references. Even if you don't buy my book, I'll give you the references for free. It's okay. You can read the studies if you want.
You know what? If that's in PDF form, the next time we go on, I can use a platform where folks can provide their name and their email, and they'll get some of the documents you name.
Let's do it. Let's do it. That'd be great. I would love that.
Set it up very differently the next time we go live. Thank you again, Dr. B. We'll talk very soon. Enjoy the remainder of your day. Thanks for what you shared. Thank you for your contribution. And the message is clear. Take the Plant-Based Day Pledge, and it's time to be fiber fueled.
Let's go.
Everybody. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day, Dr. B.
Thank you, Shabaka. Take care, my friend.
So, folks, I know for a fact that you've enjoyed this broadcast. Dr. B is amazing. I'm looking forward to diving in. I already have my copy of the book, Compliments of the Author. And come next Tuesday, you can get your copy. But if you go to one of the online platforms that provides books in digital form, you can download a sample and start the reading process. And I would highly recommend that everybody do it. It's actually, given the times, having a digital copy of the book and then a tangible hardcover copy at some point soon is safer anyway. Get your digital sample right now. Go to the Apple book platform, download it. Go to, if you have, what's the other platform? If you're not an iPhone person, go to the Android platform. Wherever you can buy books in a digital form, go ahead and download the sample of Fiber Fuel. Start reading it immediately. The book is amazing. I thank you for your time. Enjoy the remainder of your Tuesday and look forward to part 2 coming at you live and direct as soon as I can schedule it with Dr. B. Part 2 of how to fuel your gut to stay alive in the coronavirus era. I love you. May you love you by fueling your gut with plant-based foods. Let me teach you how. Take the Plant-Based Day Pledge. I will leave a link at the top of this video. Thank you again. I will be seeing you soon.